The sun rose over the Nile, painting the sky in hues of fire and gold. But this was not the Egypt of common memory. This was the Kingdom of Kush, a civilization of iron will and golden ambition, rising from the depths of Nubia like a force of nature. The rise of Kushlong. Before the conquests that would shake the world, the Nile was the lifeblood of a people who thrived where others saw only death. The desert stretched endlessly, a golden ocean of death, but along the river banks, life exploded in lush green defiance. Here, the ancestors of the Kushites built their destiny. They were farmers who coaxing harvest from the soil, but they were also something far more dangerous. They were the guardians of the world's wealth. The rocky hills of Nubia hid secrets that empires would kill for. Gold. It flowed from the mines like water, extracted by hands that knew the weight of power. Alongside the gold came ivory from the deep southern forests, incense that smelled of the gods, and ebony wood darker than the night sky. Trade caravans stretched across the desert like serpents of commerce, carrying the wealth of Africa to a world hungry for luxury. In the bustling markets of Napata, the air was thick with the scent of spices and the sound of 100 languages. This was no primitive outpost. It was a cosmopolitan hub where the world's wealth changed hands. Craftsmen worked gold into jewelry so intricate it seemed to breathe, while priests in the shadow of the sacred mountain, Jebel Barkal, performed rituals that claimed divine authority for their rulers. The kingdom was wealthy, yes, but it was also united by a belief that their kings were chosen by Amun himself. The conquest of Egypt. But destiny is rarely content with mere wealth. To the north, Egypt was crumbling. The land of the pharaohs had fractured into 1,000 petty kingdoms, a chaotic mess of warlords and pretenders. In the royal court of Kush, King Paye watched the chaos with the cold calculation of a predator. He did not see a neighbor in distress. He saw a vacuum of power. And he saw an opportunity that history had never before allowed. Paye was not a man who asked for permission. When he spoke of war, his generals did not hesitate. The Kushite army that marched north was a terrifying spectacle. Thousands of soldiers, their dark skin gleaming under the sun, marched with a discipline that Egypt had long forgotten. They carried banners that whispered of a power that had been biding its time. And among them were the archers of Nubia, the most feared warriors in the ancient world, their long bows capable of piercing armor at distances that seemed impossible. The campaign was not a war. It was a reckoning. City after city, faced with the unstoppable tide of Kushite military might, opened their gates without a fight. Egypt, the eternal civilization, fell not to a rival empire, but to the very people it had once enslaved and oppressed. When Paye entered the north, he did so not as a conqueror, but as a savior. He was crowned pharaoh, wearing the double crown of a united Egypt, the first Black Pharaoh to sit upon the throne of the two lands. The world had turned upside down. The Black Pharaohs. The reign of the Kushite pharaohs was a golden age of restoration and power. These were not occupiers. They were legitimate rulers who saw themselves as the true inheritors of Egypt's glory. They restored temples that had fallen into ruin, built massive statues that dwarfed the achievements of previous dynasties, and conducted sacred ceremonies with a piety that shocked the corrupt priesthoods they replaced. Under Pharaoh Taharka, the empire reached its zenith. He was a builder of cities and a patron of the arts, but also a warrior who understood that peace is only maintained through strength. The cities under his rule prospered, filled with the wealth of an empire that stretched from the heart of Africa to the Mediterranean. But the world is never without enemies. From the east, a new threat emerged: the Assyrians. They were a brutal, ironclad empire that had never known defeat. When they marched on Egypt, they expected an easy victory. They were wrong. The battle between the Kushite and Assyrian armies was a cataclysm of violence that shook the foundations of the civilized world. Though the Kushites were eventually forced to retreat south, the cost to the Assyrians was so high that they never dared to pursue them into Nubia. The Kingdom of Kush remained independent, a bastion of power that no empire could break,